The 3-slot payphone Part 1 is the first of 2 videos all about this type of payphone. In Part 1 you'll get an overview of the 3-slot payphone, identification of its principal exterior parts, and chronological improvements made to it over the years. Then you'll get to travel back in time to 1959 and watch how a payphone user made local and long-distance calls. You'll observe how a caller interacted with a long-distance cord switchboard operator. You'll see the collection and return of coins, and you'll also see the motions of the step-by-step telephone switching equipment as calls progress through their setup and release. The separate Part 2 video takes you inside the payphone, where you learn all about how everything worked. This video attempts to depict how the payphone interacted with a step-by-step telephone switching system and with a long-distance cord switchboard. In actuality, all calls are processed through my step-by-step demonstration switching unit, shown here. This is the payphone we'll be using. It's a Northern Electric model, code number 233H. This model first appeared in 1958. This particular unit was manufactured in the mid-1960s. This type is arranged for 10-cent prepay operation, which was typical for that time frame. This means that on this type of payphone, you cannot place a call of any type without first depositing the minimum amount required for a local call. The payphone has 3 main structural parts: the backplate, the upper housing, and the lower housing. The backplate is cast aluminum and provides a number of mounting holes for solidly securing the payphone to a wall or backboard. The steel lower housing bolts to the backplate. The upper housing fits onto the backplate at an angle and is then tilted down and pressed into its locking position and locked with a key. There is one other major part that we need to look at that is necessary to make the payphone function. That part is called the subscriber set, or subset for short. The subset is not contained within the 3-part structure we just looked at. The subset is a separate box that is generally mounted near the rest of the payphone and is wired to it, but the subset box is not directly attached to the payphone. However, for convenience in my demonstration setup, I have mounted the subset to the rear face of the backplate, since I am not using a backboard or a wall to mount my payphone. Inside the subset are the transmission network and the ringer. These components are mounted externally to the payphone simply because there was no room for them inside the payphone. The subset parts are not specific to the payphone. They are identical to the parts used in non-coin telephone sets. As such, I will not be providing details on their operation in this video. The stainless steel coin gauge is riveted to the top of the upper housing and provides the entry point for the coin deposits and guides the coins into their proper channels in the coin chute assembly. It identifies the 3 allowable denominations of coins permitted by this payphone, which are the 5-cent, 10-cent, and 25-cent pieces. It also identifies the particular slots in which they are to be deposited. The gauge limits the maximum diameter and thickness of coins that can be inserted. The rotary dial is the same type that can be found on many non-coin telephone sets. However, note that the number plate behind the finger wheel is blank, and the numbers and letters appear instead on a shroud that surrounds the finger wheel. This was commonly known as the daisy wheel shroud, and it provides better visibility of the numbers and letters. The handset is a Type G3, and it's very similar to the ones found on the Type 500 desk set. The receiver in the G3 handset is the Type U1, which is the same unit used in the Type 500 desk telephones. However, added to it is this metal security guard that protects its center area from being punctured. The handset transmitter is the Type T2. It uses the same components as the Type T1 used in Type 500 desk sets, but has an added protective metal grid to help prevent fraud and vandalism. The handset hangs on a chrome-plated metal switch hook. The handset cord is a PVC-covered 4-wire assembly. It has an armored outer sleeve of flexible stainless steel to help prevent fraud and vandalism. This is the chrome-plated instruction card frame with its instruction card inside. The instruction card contains typical instructions for a 10-cent prepay operation in the late 1950s. Mounted in the lower housing is this chrome-plated metal coin return bucket. Rejected coins, slugs, and washers are dropped into this bucket. Coins returned due to the incompletion of a telephone call are sent to this bucket, and coins initially deposited when making a long-distance call are also returned via this bucket. The bucket can simply be pulled to its open position and the returned coins retrieved. This is the hardened steel vault door that secures the access to the vault or cash compartment behind it. It has a very strong lock. The vault door locks and keys are unique to each payphone. Near the bottom of the upper housing there may be one or two locks. The one on the left is the standard lock and is always provided. It locks the upper housing into a fixed position on the payphone. All payphones equipped with the same standard lock type, such as the 21B shown here, can be opened with one common key. This was done for the convenience of maintenance access. In many locations, a secondary lock was provided for additional security. The one to the right of the standard lock is a barrel lock using a tubular key. On the top right side of the upper housing is the coin release push button. The purpose of this button is to release coins and slugs or tokens stuck in the upper chute area and send them down to the coin return bucket. It can also be used to return single nickel deposits. This is a picture of William Gray, the man who patented and installed the first coin telephone in 1889. The roots of the Type 233H payphone that we are examining today began in 1911 when Gray's Pay Station Company began manufacturing this Type 50A. This was a manual pay station, and notice that the receiver and the transmitter are two separate pieces. In 1920, the rotary dial was introduced. In 1926, the Type E1 handset was introduced, in which both the receiver and the transmitter were combined into a single handheld unit. In 1928, the number plate shroud was introduced, in which the number-letter combinations were relocated to the outside of the dial, where they had better visibility. In 1937, the Type F1 handset was introduced, which contained a higher quality transmitter and receiver than the Type E1 handset. In 1949, the coin return slot was upgraded to a pull-type bucket. The transmitters and receivers were upgraded once again in 1953 with the introduction of the G-type handset. The coin release button was added in 1956 and the armored cord in 1963. I should point out that due to the amount of conflicting documentation, all the dates shown here should be considered as approximations only. So now let's travel back in time to the year 1959. There are no cell phones or internet, so texting, email, Twitter, Facebook, FaceTime, Instagram, and YouTube don't exist. There are no laptops, tablets, or desk computers. There aren't even any push-button touch-tone phones. This is the state-of-the-art telephone set, a rotary dial Type 500, and the rotary dial had already been around for 60 years. However, America and the Soviet Union are launching satellites into space. Toy maker Mattel introduces the very first Barbie doll. Fidel Castro wins his revolution and takes power in Cuba. Sadly, rock and roll stars Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper all die in a plane crash. 1959 was the beginning of the end of the exchange name era. In the 1950s, the North American standard for telephone numbers was an exchange name followed by 5 numerals. The exchange names were the reason letters were put on dials. While telephone numbers were stated as an exchange name followed by 5 numerals, only the first 2 letters of the exchange name were actually dialed. Telephone directory listings and advertisements, like the one you see here, taken from a 1959 directory, capitalized the first 2 letters of the exchange name as a means of highlighting the letters to be dialed. The Bell system began switching over to all number calling, or ANC, in earnest in the 1960s, a phasing in process that took about 2 decades to complete. Since this video is all about the way telephony existed in 1959, we will be using the exchange name and 5 numeral format. In 1959, since there were no cell phones, if you were out and about and you wanted to call someone, well, you had to find a payphone. It's the summer of 1959 and you've gone downtown to see a movie. You're early and with time to kill, decide it's time you learned how to use a payphone. So you look for a phone booth. You find one and approach it. You're going to go into this phone booth. Oh, well, sorry. Oops, wait. No, yeah, that one's in use. Here, try this one. Inside the booth, you'll see a phone that looks like this. Since you're unfamiliar with the payphone, you decide to do a little experimentation. Feeling adventurous, without bothering to read the instruction card or take the handset off the switch hook, you deposit a quarter in the 25-cent slot to see what will happen. It drops down, but it doesn't sound as if it traveled too far and seems to be stuck. You notice the coin release button and push it, but nothing happens. You decide to try lifting the handset off its hook. Now you hear the quarter moving, a bong sound, and you hear dial tone in the receiver. You replace the handset on its hook. You hear the quarter dropping, but you don't know to where. You decide to check the coin return bucket and see if it's there. To your delight, it is, and you retrieve it. Next, you deposit a dime in the 10-cent slot. You hear it travel down the chute in 2 distinct ding-ding sounds. You lift the handset off its hook and hear dial tone. You replace the handset on its hook. You hear the dime dropping. You open the coin return bucket and find that's where your dime has dropped, so you retrieve it. Now you deposit a nickel in the 5-cent slot. You hear it traveling down the chute without any bong or ding sounds. But it does seem to travel all the way down to the bottom of the payphone. You lift the handset off its hook, but you don't hear any dial tone, so you replace it. You check the coin return bucket and find that your nickel has landed there, and so you retrieve it. You finally notice the instruction card and read the first instruction, which tells you the very first thing to do is remove the receiver. You decide to repeat the process you've just completed, but this time with the handset off the switch hook. You deposit a quarter in the 25-cent slot. You hear the quarter moving down its chute, a bong sound, and you hear dial tone through your receiver. You replace the handset and hear the quarter dropping even further. You find your quarter in the coin return bucket and you retrieve it. You take the handset off its hook and deposit a dime in the 10-cent slot. You hear it travel down the chute, 2 distinct ding sounds, and you hear dial tone through the receiver. You replace the handset and hear the dime dropping. You open the coin return bucket and retrieve your dime. You take the handset off its hook and deposit a nickel in the 5-cent slot. It doesn't sound as if it traveled too far and seems to be stuck. You didn't hear any bong or ding sounds. You press the coin release button and hear the nickel travel down a chute, but there are still no gong sounds. You replace the handset. Open the coin return bucket and retrieve your nickel. You wonder why you didn't get dial tone and decide to try it again. The result is the same. The nickel seems to be stuck and there's still no dial tone. You think maybe it's time to look at the instruction card again. You learn that 2 nickels are required to make a call. You deposit a second nickel into the 5-cent slot. Now you hear the 2 nickels traveling down a chute in one distinct ding sound. You hear dial tone through the receiver. You replace the handset. You hear the nickels dropping. You open the coin return bucket and retrieve your 2 nickels. The bong, double ding, and single ding are the payphone's way of telling you that it has accepted the coin or coins you have deposited and it is proceeding with establishing a central office connection to give you dial tone. The receipt of dial tone is the central office's way of telling you that it is ready for you to begin dialing. To summarize, what you've learned is that you won't get dial tone until the minimum amount of money required to make a call has been deposited. For the quarter and dime, the handset can be on the hook or off the hook before deposits are made. For nickels, the handset must be off the hook before deposits are made. While still in the phone booth, you discover you don't have your wallet with you. Satisfied with your newfound command of the 3-slot payphone technology, you decide to attempt a local payphone call to see if you left your wallet at your friend's house where you were earlier. For the purposes of this demonstration, we will assume that both the calling payphone and the called telephone are served by the same exchange. Your friend's telephone number is Beechwood 4 5789. You take the handset off the switch hook. You deposit a quarter in the 25-cent slot. You hear it dropping down the chute and the now familiar bong sound indicating your quarter has been accepted. The accepted coin triggers a contact to close in the payphone that in turn causes the payphone's line relay in the central office to operate. This initiates a dial tone request. A line finder is activated. It finds your payphone's line and connects it to dial tone through a first selector. You dial the local telephone number, Beechwood 4 5789. You hear audible ringing tone through your receiver. At the called party end, the telephone is ringing. The called party answers the call.
Hello?
Hi, it's John. Did I leave my wallet there by any chance?
I don't know. I'll have a look for it and call you back. What number are you at?
I'm at Beechville 6 9700.
Okay, I'll call you right back.
Both parties hang up their phones. The switch train, except for the line finder, releases. The central office sends out a high voltage pulse to the payphone to collect the quarter. You hear the sound of the quarter dropping into the cash box. The central office coin trunk releases the line finder and the payphone returns to its idle state, available for the next call. You open the coin return bucket to retrieve your 15 cents change, but the bucket is empty. You push the coin release button and check the coin return bucket again, but it is still empty. Lesson learned. These payphones do not make change. The phone company thanks you for your generous donation. Feeling somewhat miffed, you now wait patiently for your friend to call you back. Your friend is ready to call you back and removes his handset from its switch hook, which operates that phone's line relay at the central office. The operated line relay activates a line finder, which finds the line requesting service and connects it to dial tone through a first selector. Your friend dials your payphone number, Beachville 6 9700. He hears audible ringing tone through his receiver. At the same time, your payphone rings. You lift up the handset and answer the call. Hello?
Hi, John. I found your wallet.
Oh, that's great, thanks. I'll be over later this afternoon to pick it up. Bye. Both parties hang up their phones. The switch train releases. There are no coin transactions on incoming local calls. You decide to make another local call to a friend at telephone number Pennsylvania 6 5000. You lift the handset off the switch hook. Wise to the no change limitation, you now deposit a dime into the 10-cent slot. You hear the dime dropping through the chute, making a ding-ding sound, indicating its acceptance. The accepted coin triggers a contact to close in the payphone, that in turn causes the payphone's line relay in the central office to operate. This initiates a dial tone request. A line finder is activated. It finds your payphone's line and connects it to dial tone through a first selector. You dial the local telephone number, Pennsylvania 6 5000. You hear an interrupted buzzing sound through the receiver. This sound is called busy tone, and the reason you are hearing it is because the called telephone, Pennsylvania 6 5000, is already in use on another call. This in-use condition was detected by the step-by-step connector, and so it sent you busy tone as an indication that the called party's line was unavailable. You hang up. The switch train, except for the line finder, releases. The central office sends out a high voltage pulse to the payphone to return the dime. You hear the dime drop. The central office coin trunk releases the line finder and the payphone returns to its idle state, available for the next call. You open the coin return bucket and retrieve your dime. Since your call did not complete, the central office equipment returned your deposit. I know what you're thinking. You're wondering why the call didn't go to voicemail so you could leave a message. Well, you'd have to wait a while for that, about 20 years. Voicemail wasn't introduced until the late 1970s. In 1959, if the phone you were calling was in use, you got busy tone and would have to try your call again later. Oh, the inconvenience. Okay, now that you've got the local call procedure down pat, let's take a look at the long distance call procedure. The 10-cent payphone call only works for calls to phones in the local calling area. This may include the town you are located in and some nearby towns. Towns beyond the local calling area require a long distance call to be made. The telephone company charges you more than a dime for long distance calls. Imagine that. The longer the distance, the higher are the charges. You can't dial the called number yourself on a long distance call from this payphone. You have to dial 0 to connect to a switchboard operator, so that the charges for the call can be determined, and so that the operator can ensure that you deposit the correct amount for the call. When sufficient funds have been deposited, the operator will complete the connection to the called telephone for you. Here are some switchboard operators working on a long-distance cord switchboard. When you dial 0, you get connected to a trunk that would terminate on a jack on the vertical face of such a switchboard. Each of the operator trunks from the step-by-step office has a jack and lamp appearance on this board. The switchboard also has designation strips that identify the trunk number and the trunk type associated with each jack. Here you can see a strip of trunks with the CN for coin designation. This lets the operator know that every call on these type of trunks will be from a payphone. Notice that trunk number 1 has its lamp lit, indicating that there is a call waiting for service on this trunk. Notice that the operators use cords with plugs on their ends. The trunk jacks serve as receptacles for these plugs. Each operator's position has a number of cord circuits. Each cord circuit has 2 cords with plugs. The rear cord is used to answer incoming calls. The front cord is used to extend the connection to its destination. When the operator sees a trunk lamp light up, she can answer the waiting call by plugging the rear cord of a cord circuit into the trunk jack. The caller will tell her the name of the town or city they are calling and the telephone number of the called party. The operator can extend the call to its destination by plugging the front cord of the cord circuit into the trunk jack of an idle outgoing toll switching trunk and then dialing the called number. The operator has a rate guide in front of her and looks up the rate for a 3-minute call to the town or city requested. For a payphone call, she asks the caller to deposit the required amount. Now I can explain why there are different gong sounds for each coin denomination. It is so the operator can tally up how much money is being deposited. She adds 25 cents for each bong, 10 cents for each double ding, and 5 cents for each single ding. But how can the operator, who is far away in a central office, hear the gongs? Well, inside the payphone there are 2 transmitters that are connected to the payphone transmission path wires. The transmitters pick up and transmit the gong sounds over the transmission path through the step-by-step switch train and out on the operator trunk to the switchboard. This is what the operator hears through the receiver of her headset when you deposit a quarter, dime, or nickel. When the operator is satisfied that the correct amount has been deposited, she completes the connection through the switchboard to the called party by inserting a second plug into the jack of a toll switching trunk to the called town, and then dialing the called number. If the called party answers, she momentarily pushes a coin collect button. If the called party is busy, she pushes a coin return button. She then operates the cord circuit coin disposition key for about half a second and releases it. This action causes the central office trunk equipment to send a high voltage direct current pulse to the payphone. The polarity of the pulse, that is negative or positive, is determined by which button the operator pressed, coin return or coin collect. The high voltage pulse causes the payphone to either collect or return the coins. Okay, so you are going to make a long distance call from the payphone to Beechwood 45789. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have performed a virtual relocation of the Beechwood exchange from being a local exchange to a long distance exchange. So telephone number BE45789 will now be a long distance number. We'll pretend this number is now located in the small town of Port Stanley, Ontario. To keep things as simple as possible, we'll assume the town in which the call originates from and the town in which the call terminates to are both served by the same toll center switchboard. I have added sufficient equipment to my demonstration unit to reasonably emulate the processing of a long-distance payphone call through an operator. This includes a trunk that connects from level 0 of the first selector bank to this switchboard jack that you see here. My operator position equipment includes a cord and plug and a test handset that functions as an operator's headset and dial. And lastly, I have a very simple coin control circuit that the payphone plugs into. By manually operating the key to the R position, I can return coins. And by manually operating the key to the C position, I can collect coins. All of the coin collection and return that you've seen so far in this video has been performed by me simply operating this key. In a central office, the coin control functions were performed by complex trunk relay equipment, such as the local coin trunk between the line finder and the first selector, the 0 operator coin trunk outgoing to the switchboard, and the toll switch coin trunk incoming from the switchboard. On local calls, the timing and disposition of coins were determined and performed automatically by the trunk relay equipment. However, on long-distance calls, the timing and disposition of toll charges were determined and controlled by the operator and performed by the trunk relay equipment upon input signals from the operator. Here we see the complete setup with the payphone plugged into the coin control circuit. The instruction card says to dial 0 operator for long distance, and so that's what you're going to do. The payphone process for getting dial tone is the same as we've seen twice before, so there's no need for me to describe it again. I'll just let you watch and listen. You dial 0 and the first selector steps up 10 levels, hunts for an idle operator trunk, and connects to one on the 10th rotary position. You hear audible ringing through your receiver. This indicates that an operator is being signaled. At a switchboard, this would show up as a lighted lamp on an incoming coin trunk. An operator would answer the call by plugging a rear cord into the jack of the trunk, and then operating the talk key for that cord circuit. At the demo unit, I emulate this by plugging into the switchboard jack of my operator trunk, and then switching my hand test set from monitor to talk. At this point, the operator trunk relay equipment in the central office would return the initial deposit. This is because there is no charge to call an operator, and it would be confusing for the initial deposit, which might have been a quarter, to be mixed in with the toll call charges. At my demo unit, I manually perform this task by operating the coin control key to the R position. You retrieve your dime from the coin return bucket, and a conversation with an operator begins.
Operator, how may I help you?
I'd like to make a long-distance call to Port Stanley, please. The number there is Beechwood 4 5789.
Thank you. One moment, please.
The operator checks the rate for that call.
Please deposit 75 cents.
And this is what the operator hears.
Thank you. One moment, please, while I complete your connection.
The operator plugs the front cord of the cord circuit into an outgoing toll switching trunk to the Beechwood 4 exchange, operates her dial key and dials the last 4 digits of the called telephone number. At my demo unit, I can emulate this by simply dialing the last 2 digits of the telephone number. This is because my test handset is already connected to the tip and ring inputs of the connector switch. You hear audible ringing tone through your receiver. At the called party end, the telephone is ringing. The called party answers the call.
Hello.
Hi Jim, it's John Jones. Is Jack there? Upon hearing the called party answer and a conversation begin, the call becomes chargeable. The operator can collect the coins now or wait until the call ends. For this demonstration, she will do it now. She momentarily pushes the coin collect button. She then operates the cord circuit coin disposition key for about half a second and releases it. This action causes the central office trunk equipment to send a high voltage direct current pulse to the payphone. In this case, the polarity of the high voltage pulse will be for coin collection, and so the payphone drops the coins into the cash box. The operator now removes herself from this call connection by restoring her top monitor key to its upright or disconnected position. The call answering cord and the call extending cord remain plugged into their respective trunk jacks to maintain the connection between the calling and the called parties. She will remove these when the call ends, which will be indicated to her by the lighting of the cord supervisory lamps. At my demo unit, I emulate these operator functions by operating the coin control key to the collect position and transferring the test handset switch from talk to monitor. Now we'll return to the conversation in progress. You hear the coins dropping into the cash box.
Sorry, no. Jack's gone out to meet up with Jill.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll try to reach him again later. Bye for now.
Bye.
Both parties hang up. The cord supervisory lamps at the switchboard light up, indicating that the call has ended, and so the operator removes the cords from the trunk jacks. At my demo unit, I remove the cord from the operator trunk jack, and the switch train releases. Now we're going to make a long-distance collect call to the payphone. A collect call is one in which the long-distance call charges are reversed, so that the call is paid for by the called party instead of the calling party. These calls require the operator to process the call and ensure that the called party will accept the charges before the call can proceed. Okay, you're staying at a friend's house in Port Stanley for a while. Another friend, Jack Johnson, who lives in Beachville, wants you to call him when you're away. There are two problems with this. First, a call from Port Stanley to Beachville is long distance, and John doesn't want the call to be billed to the friend's house he is staying at. Second, Jack doesn't have a home phone. You've prearranged to call Jack at a payphone in Beachville at a certain time, and Jack knows he will be paying for the call. So now you're going to make a long-distance collect call from the Port Stanley residence phone, Beechwood 45789, to the Beachville payphone, Beachville 6 9700. You lift the handset off its switch hook and wait for dial tone. Let's watch and listen. You dial 0 and the first selector steps up 10 levels, hunts for an idle operator trunk, and connects to one on the 10th rotary position. You hear audible ringing through your receiver. This indicates that an operator is being signaled. At the switchboard, the lamp associated with the selected operator trunk jack would light up, and an operator would answer the call by plugging a rear cord into the jack of the trunk. and then operating the talk key for that cord circuit. At the demo unit, I emulate this by plugging into the switchboard jack of my operator trunk, and then switching my hand test set from monitor to talk. A conversation with an operator begins.
Operator, how may I help you?
I'd like to make a long-distance call to Beachville, Ontario, and reverse the charges. The number there is Beachville 69700.
Thank you. Who should I say is calling?
It's John Jones.
Thank you. 1 moment, please, while I make the connection.
Because the called station number begins with the thousands digit 9, the operator checks to see if the called telephone is a payphone. Having determined that it is, she looks up the toll charges for this collect call. The operator plugs the front cord of the cord circuit into an outgoing toll switching coin trunk to the Beachville 6 exchange, operates her dial key, and dials the last 4 digits of the called telephone number. At my demo unit, I can emulate this by simply dialing the last 2 digits of the telephone number. This is because my test handset is already connected to the tip and ring inputs of the connector switch. You hear audible ringing tone through your receiver. At the called party end, the telephone is ringing.
Hello?
I have a collect call from John Jones. Will you accept the charges?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Please deposit 80 cents.
And this is what the operator hears.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
Since this is a chargeable call, the operator can collect the coins now, or wait until the end of the call. For this demonstration, she will do it now. She momentarily pushes the coin collect button. She then operates the cord circuit coin disposition key for about half a second and releases it. This action causes the central office trunk equipment to send a high voltage direct current pulse to the payphone. In this case, the polarity of the high voltage pulse will be for coin collection, and so the payphone drops the coins into the cash box. The operator now removes herself from this call connection by restoring her talk monitor key to its upright or disconnected position. The call answering cord and the call extending cord remain plugged into their respective trunk jacks to maintain the connection between the calling and the called parties. She will remove these when the call ends, which will be indicated to her by the lighting of the cord supervisory lamps. At my demo unit, I emulate these operator functions by operating the coin control key to the collect position and transferring the test handset switch from talk to monitor. Now we'll return to the conversation in progress. At the payphone, Jack hears the coins drop into the cash box. Jack and John talk for a while, and when the conversation ends, they both hang up their phones. The cord supervisory lamps at the switchboard light up, indicating that the call has ended, and so the operator removes the cords from the trunk jacks. At my demo unit, I remove the cord from the operator trunk jack, and the switch train releases. This concludes my part 1 video on the 3-slot payphone. You can find the part 2 video and any other of my phone videos by searching for my channel name, Hicken65, on YouTube. As always, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments area of this YouTube video, and I will attempt to answer them. Thanks for watching.